I faked sleeping all night to see if my wife is lying. My wife Emma has been acting weird for weeks. And I mean really weird. She'd been staying up super late saying she was doing work stuff on her laptop, but whenever I'd walk by, she'd quickly close it or switch tabs. She started getting these random phone calls that she'd take outside. And when I asked who it was, she'd just say work or my sister, but her voice sounded off. The whole thing was making me paranoid as hell. The breaking point was last Tuesday when I came home early from my shift at the warehouse and found her rushing around the house like she was cleaning up evidence or something. She had this guilty look on her face and kept asking why I was home so early. That night, she told me she was going to bed around 10 p.m. because she had an early meeting. But something felt wrong about it, so I decided to test her. I pretended to fall asleep right after she did, but I kept one eye barely open and controlled my breathing to make it sound like I was out cold. I even did that thing where I'd occasionally twitch or mumble a little to sell it. Around 11:30 p.m., I heard her moving around. She was being super careful, like tiptoeing across our creaky bedroom floor. I kept my breathing steady and watched through my barely open eyelid as she grabbed her phone from the nightstand. She looked at me for what felt like forever to make sure I was really asleep. Then she snuck out to the living room. I waited about 5 minutes before carefully getting up and creeping toward the hallway. Our apartment is small, so I could hear everything from the bedroom doorway if I was quiet enough. She was on the phone with someone, and her voice was completely different. Not the tired, stressed voice she'd been using with me lately, but excited and happy. I couldn't make out everything, but I caught bits like, "Tomorrow night and he'll never find out, and I can't wait." My heart was literally pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. I'm thinking the worst, right? Like she's cheating or planning to leave me or something. I snuck back to bed and pretended to sleep until she came back about 20 minutes later. The next day, I was a complete mess at work. My buddy Jake kept asking what was wrong because I looked like I hadn't slept in days. I didn't want to tell him what was happening because, honestly, I felt stupid for spying on my own wife. But the whole thing was eating me alive. That evening, Emma said she had to work late again and might not be home until after midnight. She kissed me goodbye, but it felt different, like she was already mentally somewhere else. After she left, I sat on our couch staring at the TV but not really watching anything. Around 9 p.m., I decided to drive by her office building. Her car wasn't there. The parking lot was completely empty except for the security guard's truck. Now, I'm really freaking out because she definitely lied about working late. I drove around town for like an hour trying to spot her car, feeling like a complete psycho. I checked the mall, a few restaurants, even drove by her sister's place. Nothing. I went home and just sat there imagining the worst possible scenarios. She came home around 11:45 p.m., looking tired, but also kind of happy, like she was trying to hide a smile. She said work was crazy and she was exhausted, but there was this energy about her that didn't match what she was saying. I couldn't take it anymore. The next morning over coffee, I just blurted out, "Emma, what's really going on? I know you weren't at work last night." She got this deer in headlights look and started stuttering about how she was definitely at work, and why would I think otherwise? I told her I drove by the office and her car wasn't there. That's when she broke down crying. I'm preparing myself for the worst news of my life, thinking she's about to confess to an affair or ask for a divorce. But then she says, "I've been planning your surprise birthday party, you idiot." Turns out she'd been coordinating with all my friends and family for weeks. The late-night phone calls were with my mom and sister helping plan everything. The work meeting was actually her going to the party venue to check it out and meet with the caterer. She'd been stressed because she was worried I was getting suspicious and might figure it out. The whole thing was happening that weekend at my buddy Jake's house, which is why she'd been acting so weird when I mentioned hanging out with him. She was terrified he'd accidentally spoil the surprise. I felt like the biggest jackass in the world. Here I was thinking my wife was cheating on me when she was actually planning this huge party with like 30 people coming, including my cousins from out of state. The party was incredible. For weeks, my nerves had been unraveling thread by thread. Every laugh she smothered into her phone, every quick click of her laptop screen when I entered the room, every sudden excuse to take a call outside. It was like tiny paper cuts that eventually bled into paranoia. I told myself I was overthinking. That Emma, my wife, the woman I trusted most in this world, couldn't possibly be hiding something so dark. But the lies, the evasions, the guilty glances, they piled up until they were impossible to ignore. The night I faked sleep, my heart was in my throat. Controlling my breath, twitching my arm like I was deep in a dream, watching her shadow tiptoe across the floor, It felt like I was starring in a thriller about my own marriage. And when I heard those words, "He'll never find out," I can't wait. It was like a knife twisting in my chest. I lay there in silence, my body rigid, my mind spiraling. The next day was torture. Every time Emma smiled at me, every time she kissed my cheek, I wondered if her lips had just touched another man. I drove past her office like a detective in a cheap crime drama, my stomach turning when her car wasn't there. By the time she walked through our door that night, glowing with that secret energy, I felt like I didn't even recognize her anymore. When I finally confronted her, my voice cracked with fear. The silence before her confession stretched long enough for me to imagine the worst: betrayal, divorce, the end of everything. But instead, her tears broke into laughter through sobs. "I've been planning your surprise birthday party, you idiot." The relief hit me so hard I nearly laughed and cried at the same time. All those nights of suspicion, all the wild theories, all the driving around town like a lunatic, it had all been for me. For one night of celebration, surrounded by everyone I loved, a party she had built from scratch while I sat there doubting her loyalty. When I finally walked into that party, the lights flashing, the music blasting, and my friends shouting, "Surprise!" I couldn't even enjoy the moment at first. All I could think about was how close I came to shattering the trust in my marriage with my own paranoia. Emma kissed me in front of everyone, whispering, "Now do you believe me?" And I realized then that sometimes love looks like secrets, but not all secrets are betrayal. Some are gifts waiting to be revealed. Story: "Sorry, this table's for family only." My brother smirked, pointing toward a fold-out chair by the trash can. Everyone laughed as I sat alone. Then the bill arrived. $3,200. The waiter looked at me. I just smiled and said, "Not my table." Chapter 1: The Setup of Humiliation. The restaurant was buzzing that night, every table filled with laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. My brother had chosen this place for his big celebration, a promotion he claimed he'd earned all by himself. What no one knew was that I had helped him land that job by coaching him for interviews, fixing his resume, and even lending him money to buy suits. But as always, he wanted the spotlight to himself. When I walked in, dressed neatly but simply, I scanned the room for my place card. Every table had been set perfectly. Fine linen, polished silverware, and little name tags in gold cursive. My parents were at the head table, smiling proudly at my brother. His wife was already tipsy, laughing too loudly at his jokes. Finally, I found my name. Not near the family, not even at a side table. No, it was taped to a fold-out chair shoved against the wall next to the trash can where servers dumped dirty dishes. My brother smirked. "Sorry," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "This table's for family only." Laughter erupted. His wife giggled, covering her mouth. Even my own mother averted her eyes, saying nothing. I sat down silently, ignoring the stench of garbage wafting from the bin. My plate was empty while theirs overflowed with food and wine. Conversations drifted around me, mocking whispers, snickers, and cruel jokes. But I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just raised my glass of water in a mock toast as if I were invisible. Inside, though, a storm was brewing. That was the night they thought they humiliated me. That was the night I decided it was the last time they'd ever laugh at me. Chapter 2: The Silent Resolve. I didn't touch the food that night. Not the breadbasket, not the wine, not even the lukewarm water they poured into my chipped glass. Instead, I let them enjoy their laughter. Every cruel joke about me being the odd one out. Every smug smirk when they clinked to their glasses in my brother's honor, burned into my memory like hot iron. When the $3,200 bill finally arrived, the waiter glanced at me first. My brother's wife smirked and said, "Oh, don't worry. He'll pay. He's desperate to prove he belongs." I smiled for the first time that night, calm, controlled. "Not my table," I said. The waiter blinked, then set the bill right in front of my brother. The room went silent. My brother's grin faltered, his face turning red. "What the hell do you mean? Not your table." I stood, straightened my jacket, and looked him dead in the eye. "You made sure I wasn't part of this family. Don't expect me to pay for it." Gasps echoed around the table. My mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. My brother sputtered, waving the bill around like it was a personal insult. His wife snapped at him to just pay it already. But I didn't stay to watch. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high. They thought they'd humiliated me. But what they didn't know was that I had already started cutting them off long before tonight. The loans I quietly covered for my parents, gone. The business contacts I shared with my brother, gone. The quiet financial help I offered when they were drowning in debt, gone. They had treated me like garbage, and now they were about to learn what life looked like without me propping them up. This wasn't about one dinner. This was about every insult, every dismissal, every time they thought I was less. And from that moment, I decided they'd get exactly what they asked for. Chapter 3. The collapse begins. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Weeks after the dinner, my phone lit up with a missed call from my mother, then another. Then another. I ignored them. Later that evening, a text finally came through. The mortgage is due and we're short this month. Can you help? I stared at the message for a long time. For years, I'd been the quiet safety net, transferring money without a word, keeping the house afloat when my father's hours got cut or when my brother forgot to contribute. I never asked for thanks. But now they wanted help from the man they'd laughed at in front of strangers. I typed 2 words and hit send. Not my table. 3 days later, my brother called. His voice was sharp, panicked. Why the hell are you telling people I owe you money? You're ruining my business. I chuckled. No, you ruined your business when you stopped paying your debts. I just stopped covering for you. He swore at me before hanging up. By the end of the month, their world was already crumbling. My brother's biggest client walked away after discovering unpaid invoices. My parents received a foreclosure notice in the mail. My sister-in-law, once smug and untouchable, was suddenly begging her friends for grocery money. And every time one of them reached out, I gave the same answer. Not my table. The words that once humiliated me had become my weapon. They thought cutting me out at dinner made me less of a family member. What they didn't realize was that I was the glue holding everything together, and now they were about to find out exactly what life looked like without me. Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. By mid-month, the walls were closing in on them. The once proud family who had laughed as I sat alone by the trash can now found themselves shunned, struggling, and desperate. It came late at night, her voice cracked through the line. Please, we're losing the house. Your father's credit is ruined. Your brother promised he'd handle it, but he hasn't. Can you send something just this once? I let the silence stretch before answering. Do you remember when I asked for a seat at the table? Just one, and you all laughed? Her sobs filled the receiver. This isn't the time to bring that up. I cut her off. This is the time because that was the moment you all showed me exactly where I stood. And now you're standing there alone. I hung up before she could reply. The next blow came when my brother's car, once his pride and joy, was repossessed in broad daylight outside his office. His employees watched, whispering, recording on their phones. Clients pulled out immediately. By Friday, his office was empty. The big man who mocked me had no one left to lean on. Irony has a cruel sense of timing. The same restaurant where I was humiliated hosted another family dinner, but this time there was no laughter, no luxury meals. The bill was too much for them. Credit cards declined. Arguments erupted in front of strangers. The manager finally asked them to leave. I wasn't there, but word traveled fast. An old friend texted me a picture. My family standing outside, red-faced and broken, while my brother screamed into his phone. The caption, "Looks like their table's gone." 2. They had mocked me, cut me out, and thought I'd always be the safety net. But the truth had finally hit them. Without me, there was no table at all. Chapter 5. The Poetic Justice. It didn't take long before they finally came crawling back. One evening, as I sat reading in my quiet home, there was a frantic knock. When I opened the door, I saw my brother, once polished and smug, now disheveled. His eyes ringed with sleepless nights. He didn't waste time. "We need your help. Please, Mom and Dad might lose the house. The bank won't budge. We can't do it without you." Behind him, my mother stood with tears streaming down her face. My father hung back, silent, ashamed. For a moment, I just looked at them. The same people who told me I wasn't family. The same ones who laughed as I sat by the trash can. I stepped outside, closing the door gently behind me. "You remember that dinner?" I asked softly. They nodded, eyes down. "You told me I wasn't family, that my place was by the trash. You laughed while I sat alone. And now you're here asking for me to save you." My brother's voice cracked. "We were wrong. I know it now. Please, just help us this once." I let out a small laugh. Not cruel, but final. "Family is more than blood. It's respect. And you threw that away." I pulled a small envelope from my jacket pocket and handed it to my mother. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a foreclosure notice for their house signed off by the same bank that had just approved me for a new investment property. "Do you know why they called me first?" I asked. "Because unlike you, I built trust. I paid my debts. I worked hard. You mocked me, but you needed me more than I ever needed you." My father finally spoke, his voice. "So this is it? You're cutting us off for good." I looked each of them in the eye. "No, you cut me off a long time ago. Tonight I'm just making it official." Within months, their house was gone. My brother moved into a shabby apartment. My parents lived off government aid. And the once proud family name that meant everything to them forgotten. Meanwhile, I thrived. My business grew. My circle of real friends and chosen family expanded. And every time I sat at a dinner table surrounded by people who valued me, I thought back to that night to the fold-out chair by the trash can. They wanted me forgotten. But in the end, it was them. Chapter 6, The Legacy of Respect. Months after cutting ties, I hosted my own dinner. Not in a fancy banquet hall, not to impress anyone, but in my home where every chair at the table was filled with people who truly cared about me. My colleagues, neighbors, and closest friends laughed freely. They weren't bound by blood, but by loyalty and respect. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the forgotten one. I felt like the head of the table. Halfway through dessert, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with my brother's name. I watched it ring until it went silent. Then it rang again and again. Finally, I set the phone face down. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. The people who pushed me toward the trash can had become exactly that in my life. Trash left out on the curb, and I wasn't about to pick it back up. The final lesson. Later that night, as the laughter died down and my guests left, I sat alone for a moment, letting the silence wash over me. Family isn't the ones who share your blood. It's the ones who share your table. And as for those who mocked me, belittled me, and thought I'd never walk away, they were the ones who ended up abandoned, forgotten, and left behind. Because in the end, I didn't just refuse their bill that night. I refused to ever let them make me small again. Epilogue. Years later, people in town remembered my business as one that thrived, my home as one always filled with friends, and my name as one associated with respect. But when they spoke of my brother and the rest of them, most people said the same thing. "Oh, right. Whatever happened to them again?" They got their wish. I disappeared from their lives. But in truth, they were the ones who disappeared from everyone else's. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice. And share this story with someone who needs its fire. Subscribe to Lauren's story because here betrayals don't sleep. They hunt their owners. Every shadow hides a reckoning. Every mask breaks and every betrayal is answered. Stay sharp. Stay unbroken.